Greetings and welcome to Newzim TV. I am Makanaka Masinyama. Stories making the headlines. Government lines up massive festivities for anti-sanctions campaign. In the courts, MDC in court bid to have police removed from Harare offices. In business, World Bank downgrades Zimbabwe to low-income economy status. In sports, injured warriors Hardman Tendai Darikwa heavyweight recovery progress. News in detail. Government has lined up massive festivities for this month's anti-sanctions campaign, a SADC initiative that will see some of the country's allies also stage similar activities in support of their troubled neighbor. This was revealed by Information Minister Monica Mchangwa at a post-cabinet media briefing in Harare on Tuesday.
In Harare, the march will be towards the National Sports Stadium, where government, business, religious institutions, the academia, civic society, and various other social groups will call for the unconditional removal of those illegal sanctions. The proceedings at the National Sports Stadium will culminate in the staging of the anti-sanctions musical gala by various artists. Similar events shall also be held in all our provincial capitals and district centers throughout the country. We call upon Zimbabweans from all walks of life to join hands and call for the removal of these illegal sanctions, which have and continue to cause untold suffering to the rank and file for our people.
However, Minister Mchangwa did not disclose how much government has set aside for the staging of the festivities. October 25 was set aside at the last SADC summit in Tanzania by leaders who agreed to have their respective countries stage various forms of activities to try and persuade America and Europe to scrap targeted sanctions against Zimbabwe. Under late former President Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe was slapped with sanctions in 2001 and 2003 over poll theft and rights abuses. Meanwhile, speaking at the same media conference, Health Minister Obadiah Moyo blamed the sanctions for the country's continued failure to procure essential medicine for use in its public hospitals.
The situation that we now face in our health institutions, this is atypical. We hear the doctors saying that there is no equipment, there is no reagents, there is no medicines. It is because of the shortage of the foreign currency. Foreign currency which you would normally get if there was no sanctions. But because of the sanctions imposed on us, we end up with people dying at a national scale rather than on an individual basis. So whoever says it's targeted, they are wrong. This is a very typical example of the horrible effects of the sanctions which are imposed on Zimbabwe. The effect on the whole healthcare system.
Bulawayo residents and journalists on Tuesday took turns to slam some of the provisions on the proposed Zimbabwe Media Commission bill, which they described both as undemocratic and unconstitutional. On August 9 this year, the government gazetted the ZMC bill, one of the media bills lined up to replace the repressive and widely discredited Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Presenting their views on the proposed bill to the Prince Dubego Sibanda chaired Parliament Media Committee, participants said the proposed bill was a threat to the practice of journalism in the country. They cited Section 10.3 of the bill, which calls for the imprisonment of journalists in the events of ethical lapses. Another participant, Admire Kudita, called for the pruning of the minister's powers in the operations of the ZMC to avoid state interference. In the courts, MDC has filed an urgent application with the High Court seeking to have dozens of anti-red police removed from the front of the main opposition's headquarters in central Harare. Following the said discovery of 248 police and Harare Municipal Police helmets at a building that is close to Morgan Richard Changere House on Sunday, police moved and set up base in front of the MDC offices. The party has since filed an application seeking the court's intervention in having the police removed from its vicinity. MDC says the continued presence of the police caused unnecessary anxiety among its employees and some tenants who rent some offices on the ground floor. Cited as respondents are Police Commissioner General Godwin Matanga and the officer commanding Police Harare Province as respondents. And business. A recent World Bank report, Africa Pulse, has downgraded Zimbabwe to a low-income country, specification in a move that further confirms the country's economic mess. The new classification comes 3 months after the troubled Southern African nation was upgraded to a lower middle-income country status, a classification which was expected to last for the period 2019 to 2020 and is effective from July 1 this year. Low-income economies have a gross national income of $910 per individual over a 12-month period, while lower middle-income economies enjoy a GNI of $1,790, with high-income economies being those with a GNA per capita of $12,376 or more. We end with sports. Zimbabwe Warriors and Nottingham Forest defender Tendai Darikwa hopes to be fit enough to return to action before the end of the season as he continues his recovery from a serious injury before the start of the English Championship season. The 27-year-old fullback has not played any competitive football since undergoing surgery on his right knee after suffering an anterior cruciate ligament on the eve of the new campaign in August. After recently starting rehabilitation, Darikwa remains hopeful of making an appearance in the final games of the current season. Reporting for newzimbabwe.com, I am Makanaka Masinyama. For this and more stories, visit our website www.newzimbabwe.com or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Newzim TV.